I told Marcus I was in my 3 or 4 phase, the night he admitted he was deleting his dating apps, and now he leaves my messages on read for exactly 4 hours before responding with single-word answers. My roommate Jenna calls it radical self-awareness, but she doesn't know I constructed the entire narrative from trauma and panic. I looked into his eyes, soft, brown, genuinely interested, and deliberately became someone he couldn't love rather than risk exposing the decay underneath my skin. What I demolished wasn't a casual fling, it was the first person in 26 months who made my body feel like it belonged to me again. Our shared friend group has fractured down predictable lines, with most of them labeling me emotionally catastrophic in group chats they forgot I was still in. They're not technically incorrect, but they believe I'm guarding my independence when I'm actually trying to contain a contagion from my past that I thought I'd cauterized. The brutal irony is I would have surrendered every self-protective instinct I owned for a real chance with him. I'm writing this because Marcus posted a birthday tribute to his brother Derek yesterday, and I spent 45 minutes vomiting in my office bathroom before security asked if I needed medical assistance. This is the complete account of how I annihilated my healthiest relationship to avoid admitting that the man who assaulted me in a club bathroom 23 months ago shares Marcus's last name and childhood bedroom. The first time Marcus touched my lower back while we were waiting for our table, I flinched so hard I knocked his phone from his hand. He thought I was playfully clumsy, but my spinal cord had short-circuited. I'd spent 18 months in trauma therapy learning to tolerate casual contact, yet his gentle palm still registered as a brand. That was the moment I should have told him. Instead, I laughed and said, "Sorry, I'm still in my don't touch me unless you're a barista phase." He grinned and kept his hands to himself, which made me want him more. Marcus worked 3 floors below me at the same financial district tower. We'd ridden the same elevator for 6 months before he finally commented on my ENIAC keychain, which is objectively embarrassing, but I'd kept it because my assault counselor said to maintain comforting rituals. He didn't mock it. He asked if Orinoco Flow was her best track, which is the kind of specific knowledge that suggests emotional depth. For 3 weeks, we had coffee in the lobby, and I felt the fist in my chest loosen by degrees. Then he invited me to his apartment for dinner, and I saw the photo. Derek in his police academy graduation frame, smiling the same smile he'd given me before locking the bathroom door. I spent the entire cab ride home practicing my new persona. When Marcus texted asking if I'd arrived safely, I replied, "Yeah, but heads up, I'm in my 304 phase right now." I made it sound casual, like I'd just returned from a meditation retreat with a new vocabulary. He sent back a thumbs up that I stared at for an hour, watching the digital lifeboat I'd shoved away float into open water. For the next week, I committed to the bit with religious fervor. I posted Instagram stories of me dancing with male friends, their faces obscured by neon stickers. I changed my Bumble profile to just here for a good time, not a long time. When Marcus asked if I wanted to see a movie, I said, "Can't, got a date with my vibrator and my commitment issues." He sent a laughing emoji that didn't reach his eyes, even through the screen. Jenna found me crying in our kitchen at 2 a.m., my phone open to Marcus's Facebook profile. "I thought you were living your best life," she said, her voice sharp with confusion. I snapped back, "Maybe my best life involves crying over someone who respects my boundaries." The defensiveness tasted metallic, but she dropped it. That was the first time someone questioned the performance, and I nearly buckled. The real truth, the one I hadn't even told my therapist, was that Derek's phase with me had lasted 43 minutes in a club bathroom, but the fallout had infected every cell in my body. I'd spent the first year after the assault in a dissociative haze, sleeping with people whose names I couldn't remember because feeling nothing was better than feeling terror. I'd only started therapy because my OB-GYN threatened to stop prescribing me antibiotics for my chronic UTIs unless I addressed my self-destructive patterns. But Marcus didn't need to know any of that. Better he think I was a liberated woman making empowered choices than a broken person reenacting trauma. Then he tagged me in a post about his brother's engagement party, and I recognized the venue. The same club. The same bathroom. The same man in a suit that cost more than my month's rent, now flashing a ring and a smile for the camera. I told Jenna I was working late and drove to the club, parking across the street like a stakeout detective. I watched Derek arrive with his fiancée, watched him kiss her forehead the way he'd kissed mine, before dragging me into the corridor that smelled like bleach and men's cologne. My hands shook so violently, I couldn't hold my keys. Texted Marcus, can't make it tonight, Faze is calling, then blocked his number for 3 hours so I wouldn't see his response. When I unblocked him, there were 17 messages, not angry ones, concerned ones. Are you okay? Did I do something? I can wait for you to be ready. Reading them felt like swallowing glass. I typed and deleted I'm fine 12 times before settling on, just doing me boo, don't wait up. The pet name was nails on a chalkboard, but it maintained the illusion. Jenna confronted me the next morning, holding my phone, which I'd left in the kitchen, open to Marcus's message thread. You realize you're ghosting the only decent man you've met since college, right? I snatched it from her, my voice pitching up an octave. You realize it's my life and my body, right? The click hung between us, weaponized and hollow. She raised her hands in surrender, but her eyes stayed judgmental. That night, I created a fake Instagram account to follow Derek's fiancée. Her profile was all wedding planning and workout videos, a curated vision of a future I was choking on. I scrolled back to posts from 23 months ago, searching for any mention of a club, a bathroom, a bad night. There was nothing. Either he'd hidden it completely, or she knew and had chosen him anyway. Marcus showed up at our apartment with soup when I posted a story about being sick. I opened the door in my pajamas, no bra, vulnerable in ways I hadn't been since before the assault. You didn't have to, I whispered, taking the container. He stepped forward like he might hug me, and I stepped back so fast I knocked over Jenna's succulents. Sorry, I said, still in my phase, can't risk cooties. The joke landed like a gunshot. He left without saying goodbye. Later, I found the police report I'd filed the morning after Derek attacked me. The officer who took my statement had been his training officer. He'd suggested I was confused about the sequence of events, and maybe I'd had too much to drink. The report was marked unfounded, and I'd been too shattered to fight. I'd thrown it in my desk drawer and tried to become someone new. Marcus texted me a photo of his brother's save the date, asking if I'd be his +1. I stared at Derek's name until the letters blurred, then replied, can't, my phase doesn't do weddings. Too many expectations. He sent back a thumbs up that felt final. Jenna moved out 3 days later, citing my toxic avoidance patterns and the fact that I'd stopped paying utilities. I couldn't blame her. I'd spent the previous night blackout drunk, posting cryptic quotes about liars and predators on my story, tagging Marcus in 3 of them before deleting them. He'd screenshotted them and asked if I was okay. I'd replied, just phase things, king. My boss called me into her office after I missed 3 client meetings. You're spiraling, she said, not unkindly. Do you need leave? I laughed and said, just a rough breakup. She didn't know Marcus and I had never technically been a couple. That was part of the horror. I'd torpedoed something that existed mostly in my own head. Marcus's new girlfriend, Sarah, confronted me at the coffee shop in our building. He cried over you, she said, her voice low and vicious. Whatever game you're playing, it's shitty. I wanted to tell her I wasn't playing a game, I was surviving a war, but instead I said, tell him my phase sends its regards. She slapped me, hard. The barista threatened to call the cops. I left before they arrived. Derek messaged me from a fake account that night. I heard you're telling people things about me. My blood turned to ice. I hadn't told anyone. I replied, I don't know what you're talking about. He sent a photo of me leaving the club from 2 weeks ago, timestamped. Stop following my fiancée, the message read, or I'll make sure Marcus knows you're unstable. I agreed to meet Derek at a diner, which was the most catastrophic decision in a series of catastrophic decisions. He sat across from me in his police uniform, his smile a blade. My brother thinks you're a free spirit, he said, stirring his coffee. I think you're a liar who regrets getting caught. I couldn't speak. When I finally found my voice, it came out as a whisper, you know what you did. He leaned forward. I know what you think I did, the report says otherwise. Marcus showed up at my apartment that night, his face raw. Derek told me you threatened to ruin his wedding, he said. He said you've been stalking him. What the hell, Maya? I stood in my doorway, my entire world narrowing to the pulse in my throat. Do you believe him? I asked. Marcus's hesitation was its own answer. I don't know what to believe, he admitted. But my brother's a decorated officer. You're in a phase. The word landed like a verdict. Jenna called me from her new place after seeing Marcus's Instagram post about toxic people creating false narratives. She said, you need to tell him whatever you're hiding. I screamed into the phone, I can't, Derek will destroy me. The line went quiet. What did Derek do? She asked, her voice now small and scared. I hung up and threw my phone against the wall. The report was still in my desk, along with the photos I'd taken of the bruises, the texts Derek sent afterward, sorry things got out of hand, and the email from the internal affairs investigator who'd closed the case without interviewing me. I'd kept everything because some part of my broken brain knew this day would come. Marcus left me a voicemail after Derek's fiancée called off the wedding. She found something on his phone, he said, his voice cracking. Mentions of you, photos, Maya, what happened? I listened to it 17 times, my thumb hovering over the callback button. Jenna sat next to me on the floor, having returned after I sent her a photo of the report. You have to tell him everything, she said, or he will always choose Derek's story. I invited Marcus over with the text I should have sent 6 months ago. I need to show you something about your brother. When he arrived, I handed him the police report, the photos, the texts. He read them in silence, his hands trembling. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice broken. I was in a phase, I said, the word tasting like ash. A phase where I thought I could handle this alone. The most damning detail wasn't in the report. It was the text from Derek's former partner, sent 2 weeks after the assault. He has a pattern. I tried to warn his last girlfriend, stay safe. I'd never responded. I deleted it from my phone, but saved it in my email because I was terrified of what it meant. Marcus took the evidence to the Department Civilian Oversight Board. Derek was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The fiancé provided a statement about finding recordings on his phone, videos from the club bathroom, multiple women. Marcus moved out of their shared apartment and into a hotel. He sent me one text, I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I didn't know if he meant Derek or me. The fallout was nuclear. Derek's lawyer contacted me about a defamation suit. My HR department called me in, concerned about public drama affecting client relationships. Someone leaked the story to a local blog, and I became the woman who cried rape to ruin a cop's wedding in the comments. Jenna stayed, fielding calls from reporters while I hid in my bedroom. What I hadn't anticipated, the consequence that blindsided me, was Marcus's mother showing up at my door. You broke my family, she said, tears streaming down her face. Derek says you're lying. Marcus believes you. I don't know who to trust. I had no answer for her. She was collateral damage in a war she didn't know existed. Sitting in my bathroom, the same place I'd hidden after Marcus's first touch, I finally understood what I'd done. I'd wounded everyone to protect myself from a truth that was never mine to hide. The phase wasn't about sex. It was about believing I was disposable, that my pain would contaminate anyone close enough to breathe it in. Marcus visited me in the hospital after I swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills. Not my finest moment, but the one that finally forced honesty. He sat in the vinyl chair, his face aged 10 years. Derek confessed, he said. They're charging him. I stared at the ceiling, the weight of everything pressing down. I told you I was in a phase because I thought it would hurt less than telling you your brother is a predator. He took my hand, and for the first time since the assault I didn't flinch. You were wrong, he said gently, but I understand why you thought you had to be. The moral ambiguity isn't clean. I destroyed a good man to protect him from a truth I should have owned. I weaponized sexual liberation language to hide my brokenness. I let a predator continue because I was afraid of not being believed. Some days I think I'm the victim. Other days, I'm certain I'm the villain. Most days, I'm both. Marcus and I don't speak anymore, but he sent me a link to Derek's sentencing hearing last week. I didn't click it. I don't need to see his face to know that 6 months of performative promiscuity cost me more than the assault ever did. I chose to be a phase instead of a survivor, and that choice echoes louder than any truth I could have spoken. If you're reading this and wondering what you would have done, whether you would have been braver, smarter, more honest, I invite you to sit with the reality that sometimes the lie feels like the only armor you have. Sometimes, 304, is easier to say than I was raped, and I reported it, and no one cared, and now I'm terrified of being believed. I told him I was in my phase because I thought it would protect us both. I was wrong. But understanding why I was wrong doesn't change the fact that I still check my blocked messages folder every night, hopping for a text from a man who finally understood that my liberation wasn't about sex, it was about survival. And I survived the wrong way.